the box? You opened it? I came.
Welcome back, everyone. Similar to the Nemesis, I've had several requests for everyone's favorite box supplier Pinhead, also known as the Cenobite. Pinhead originates from the Hellraiser film franchise, to which I will be including a link down below in the description for you to watch the first film if you choose to do so. Out of all the licensed killers, Pinhead is perhaps the most perfectly translated from his respective film franchise. His power has two components to it, the first being his possessed chain. Pinhead can summon a gateway into the environment and see how far it travels. At this point, you can either cancel the gateway, to which you go on a short cooldown, or if you choose not to cancel it, your camera perspective will change to the location your gateway appeared. From there, you can choose to fire a chain at a high speed in the direction you're facing, and if the chain makes contact with the survivor, they'll be bound by 3 chains that spawn in the environment, with each chain connecting to the survivor's arms and their back respectively. This greatly reduces the survivor's movement speed while they're taking the chains off, and stops them from doing various actions, but it still allows them to drop pallets and slow vault obstacles in the environment. The chains also have the weakness that if they hit an obstacle in the environment, including another survivor or Pinhead himself, they will also break. This is best used in short range areas such as looping areas, because aiming for long distance shots, it doesn't really allow you any time to catch up to them in any significant manner. The second part of his power is the lament configuration, a puzzle box that spawns in the environment and causes all survivors to have a countdown placed on them as a team. Survivors can see the box's aura around the map, whereas Pinhead normally cannot. When the chain counter fills up, it'll start a chain hunt. This will cause all survivors to be harassed by chains that will sporadically appear in the environment, and will attempt to latch onto the survivors, making it very difficult for them to accomplish any objectives whatsoever. To deactivate a chain hunt and reset the timer, a survivor must pick up the box and solve it. However, during the time you solve it, Pinhead sees your location and has the ability to teleport to your location if he chooses to do so. When this happens, Pinhead can also see which survivor picks it up, and that can play an important role in deciding if he will or won't teleport to it. If the survivor carrying the box chooses not to solve the puzzle, they become oblivious and cause passive chains to sporadically appear in the environment that only harass them. If, however, Pinhead finds the box or downs the survivor carrying the box, he will solve it instead. Doing so will cause all survivors to scream and reveal their location to you, as well as chaining all survivors with 3 chains starting the chain hunt. The box, after being solved, has a short cooldown period before respawning in the environment to start the countdown once again. The box is perhaps the most powerful aspect to your base power as Pinhead because of its ability to affect the entire team passively over time. There are several add-ons that increase its effectiveness, however I think the most underrated one to be used with it is the Chatteroo's Tooth. This reveals the Aura of the Lament configuration to you as Pinhead, and if you go to pick it up, you'll become undetectable for the next 25 seconds. The downside being that if you pick it up, it deactivates the chain hunt, but it quickly respawns the box in the environment so you can pick it up again faster. With the Chatteroo's Tooth, it has very strong potential interrupting the survivor's progress, which has a lot of synergy with other perks. One of the best perks to pair with it are Dead Man Switch. After hooking Survivor, Dead Man Switch activates for 45 seconds. If a survivor stops repairing a generator or is interrupted by a chain, either by the chain hunt or your possessed chain, it will cause the generator to become blocked for the remaining duration of Dead Man Switch. So after you hook a survivor, you can walk over to the lament configuration, solve it, and boom, all generators being worked on will be blocked for the remaining duration of Dead Man Switch. To also help you get Dead Man Switch value, if the lament configuration is just too far away, you also have the perk Oppression. After kicking a generator, 3 other random generators start progressing, and if they're being worked on, they'll face a difficult skill check. And if they fail the skill check, again, they'll be forced off, so Dead Man Switch will also block that generator as well. Oppression and solving the box can also interrupt the next perk, which is Merciless Storm. Merciless Storm causes survivors to face back-to-back skill checks on a generator when it reaches 90% completion. If you can force them off with either Oppression, the chain hunt, or a possessed chain during this time, it will cause that generator to become blocked for the next 20 seconds. To help you have a better idea as to when Merciless Storm activates, Tinkerer notifies you when a generator reaches 70% completion, and also makes you undetectable for the next 16 seconds. Additionally, combining the time you're undetectable with the Chatteroo's Tooth for 25 seconds means you're going to be a silent but deadly killer for a decent portion of the game, which is a really good effect. And to help you pull the build off, you can also pair it with the Iridescent Lament configuration to hide the box essentially if the survivors are more than 24 meters away if a chain hunt is inactive. Or alternatively, you could use one of the add-ons that extend how far you can cast your gateway, as to keep surveillance over the generators from a distance, and to help you pull them off with your possessed chain when the perks activate. Keeping with the Chatteroo's Tooth from the previous build, the stealth and information aspect of it cannot be understated, especially when combined with other information perks. For this reason, I like to use it with Call of Brine. This perk activates for the next 60 seconds after you cook a generator, and during this time it regresses at 200% the normal rate, and also gives you a loud noise notification when a survivor hits a good skill check on it while Call of Brine is active. This is generally useful in keeping track of a survivor when they go to return to a generator, especially if you reveal their location by solving the lament configuration. The regression you get from Call of Brine also pairs well with the next perk, which is Deadlock. Deadlock activates when a generator is completed, and for the next 30 seconds, the next generator with the most amount of progress is blocked by the entity and is revealed to you in a white aura. So if you're far away from a generator blocked by deadlock, you have enough time to walk over there and kick it with a Call of Brine to ultimately delay its completion. Similar to how the previous build had Tinkerer for information and stealth, Dark Devotion is being used for this build. When you hit the Obsession, you become undetectable for the next 30 seconds. Meanwhile, the Obsession carries a fake 32-meter wide tear radius for that duration as well. This perk against your average player can be confusing, especially if you leave the Obsession and they run into an area that has other survivors in it. Or because you're undetectable and you don't have a red stain, you can get away with more mind games against the Obsession, especially if the survivor breaks line of sight with you to loop. To trigger Dark Devotion more often, the perk Nemesis is also being used. When you're stunned by any means or blinded, the survivor who did it will become the Obsession if they're not already, and they become oblivious for the next 60 seconds. Like all the other survivors, the Obsession would normally hear the fake tear radius from Dark Devotion, but because they're oblivious from the perk Nemesis, they actually don't, which is a really cool effect. And I also bring up the perk Nemesis for the next build, because instead of being paired with Dark Devotion, it's actually paired with Play With Your Food. This perk gives you a token each time you let your Obsession escape a chase, up to 3 tokens max, with each one increasing your movement speed by 5%. This combination of perks pair well with the Engineer Thing add-on. This causes your possessions to damage healthy survivors, but that is offset when you chase them while injured, because it reduces the number of chains that latch onto injured survivors as the trade-off to it. This is perhaps the only add-on in the game that causes a non-damaging power to deal damage, and because of that reason, it's neither considered a basic or special attack with the Engineer Thing. Because it counts as neither action, you don't lose Play With Your Food stacks, so you can basically just speed around the map and just keep your stacks overall, which is a really cool effect. When the survivors realize you're running this add-on, they're going to be less inclined to heal, since not only can you deal damage, but you can deal damage from far away with your possessed chain by keeping surveillance over the objectives such as generators. When you start dealing out damage though, Hysteria will trigger when you injure someone with your possessed chain. When this happens, all injured survivors will become oblivious for the next 30 seconds. This has the potential to let you jump scare survivors because they can't hear your tear radius, which combined with your increased movement speed can be a deadly combination. The last perk of the build is Thanatophobia, which decreases the action speeds of survivors by 5% for each injured, hooked, and dying state survivor. Because you have the Engineer Thing and can keep survivors injured, it makes a good slowdown perk for the build overall. With the second add-on, you can pretty much run anything with it, including the Iridescent Lament configuration, the Chatterer's Tooth, casting range add-ons, but I think in this case the Greasy Black Lens shines. Because whenever you hit a survivor with your possessed chain, including when you injure them with the Engineer's Fang, their aura is revealed to you for up to 6 seconds. The synergy between these add-ons combined with the perks means not only can you deal damage quickly, but you can follow up with chases quickly as well. It's a pretty fun build, but I'm sure the Engineer Thing will be nerfed or changed sometime in the future because of how strong it can be. This next build is a bit gimmicky, as it's actually centered around Pinhead's event score, the Lament Guardian. The player gets the score of 2500 extra Devious Blood points when the game ends, and the Lament configuration is still in game. If the survivor escaped the trial with the box, however, then you won't get these extra points or the event score altogether. And as you may have guessed, all the perks are designed to keep the Lament configuration away from the survivors, and ultimately keep it in the trial ground so you can get this event score. The first perk in the build is Franklin's Demise, which when a survivor is hit will cause them to drop the Lament configuration if they're carrying it, or any other item that they're holding. This perk also reveals the aura of dropped items within 32 meters of your location. The aura starts off white and becomes red over the next 90 seconds, as it loses charges passively over time because of Franklin's Demise. By causing the survivor to drop the Lament configuration, you can pick it up and start the chain hunt, while revealing the location of all other survivors, which is a really good effect overall. The next perk is actually help you find the box, and that is Hoarder. When a survivor searches the chest or picks up an item, including the Lament configuration, within 64 meters of your location, their location is revealed to you. So once you get the Hoarder notification and see that one of the survivors are holding the Lament configuration, you can start making your way over to them essentially after you get the notification from Hoarder. It's unlikely that they'll instantly try to solve the box, but if they do, the add-ons that increase the time it takes to solve the box can be very useful for this reason. If you get the notification that a survivor starts to solve the box, you can attempt to interrupt them with the possessed chain to stop them from ultimately finishing the puzzle. You can also use the increased casting range add-ons in conjunction with the solving time to increase the likelihood of stopping this action. While these perks stop the survivors during the beginning and middle of the game, the next two focus on the end game. Fix No One Escapes that activates if there's a single Dull Totem whenever the exit gates are powered. Dull Totem becomes a hex, and while active, you gain a 4% increase to your movement speed, and all survivors suffer from the exposed status effect. Because you don't have any generator slowdown and is thematically appropriate for this build, this can help you snowball and activate the last perk, which is Blood Warden. If an exit gate has been opened, when you go to hook a survivor, for the next 60 seconds, the exit gates will become blocked, which for this build's purpose means no one can escape with the Lament configuration. Thus the build comes full circle and you get the Lament Guardian score overall. And with the last build, we come to the Cenobite's lore-based build. Elliot Spencer's life is shrouded in the unknown, at least for his childhood and teenage years. What we do know about his earliest memories are from Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, when Elliot explains that his time serving in the British Army during the First World War left him numb to the world. He had lost his humanity from the death and destruction around him, as the First World War is often known as the war to end all wars. For this reason, I think Zanshin Tactics is the first perk in the build. This perk reveals the order of all pallets, breakable walls, and vault locations within 32 meters of your location. And because the war had numbed him of all the senses of joy and pleasure in the world, he sought out anything and everything to feel alive again. Through a series of choices, he would come across the Lament Configuration, a mysterious puzzle box that once solved would open the gateway to either heaven or hell. When he solved the box, Leviathan, the god of hunger, flesh, and desire within the labyrinth realm inside the box, transformed him into what we would later be known as a Cenobite, an angel to some and a demon to others. While Elliot may not have a choice in joining the war because of conscription, a series of choices would lead him to become the lead Cenobite and Hell Priest known as Pinhead. For this reason, make your choices the next perk in the build. When a survivor is unhooked when you're more than 32 meters away, the rescuing survivor will become exposed for the next 60 seconds. As a Cenobite, his existence has become solely about bringing pain, suffering, and pleasure to those who dare open the Lament Configuration. We see this play out in the first movie when the main antagonist, Frank Cotton, seeks out the otherworldly pleasures that are within the Lament Configuration. After Frank opens the box, he's subsequently ripped apart with chains that Pinhead and his fellow Cenobites control as part of the pain and pleasure experience overall. The next perks are actually both Pinhead's teachable perks, the first being Scourgehook Gift of Pain. This spawns 4 Scourgehooks around the map, and when a survivor is placed on them, they suffer from the Mangled and Hemorrhage status effects. If they do heal back to healthy after suffering from these status effects, they will suffer a 9% action penalty to healing and generate repair speeds. The second teachable perk for the build is Hex Plaything. As Frank becomes one of the many people who have opened the box as revealed by Pinhead, when the protagonist, Kirsty Cotton, asks about Frank's involvement with the Cenobites. After Kirsty indirectly hands Frank back over to the Cenobites, they try and take her as well, as she had previously bargained with them, only for Kirsty to send them back to their own hell within the box. When Kirsty ventures into the labyrinth in the second film, Pinhead and the other Cenobites once again try to keep her as a plaything, to explore her pain and suffering ultimately. Once again, though, she is able to escape their grasp. Hex Plaything turns a dull totem into a Hex Totem when a survivor is hooked for their first time. They are cursed with the Oblivious status effect, and for the first 90 seconds, only that affected survivor can cleanse their specific Hex Totem. The Hellraiser chapter for Dead by Daylight has had an interesting series of ups and downs, with Pinhead's voice lines being removed upon release, NFTs being made from Pinhead's model artwork, to having his voice lines brought back but actually voiced by Doug Bradley, the original Pinhead from the film franchise. In terms of gameplay, I think Pinhead can be a very satisfying killer to play as, and at other times just frustrating overall. I don't have a lot to say about Pinhead other than the most minor of critiques. I'd honestly like to see his possess chain reward you more for long distance shots, as I feel like it's only useful in short range. And I'd also like to see more Cenobite skins added to the game in general, specifically the female lead Cenobite skin. I also wish he had some add-ons that interact with the obsession mechanic, similar to how Michael Myers' Judith Journal does. Because for like 3 of the films, Kirsty Cotton in a way is Pinhead's obsession for those films. I'm just saying. Anyways, with that being said, Pinhead does have a lot of strong and fun add-ons to use. I just hope he gets the remaining ones updated with an add-on pass overall soon. And with that being said, we come to the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video and want to support the channel, consider leaving a like as it helps promote the video through YouTube, and consider subscribing for more content. I'm Meepless3, and I will see you next time. Goodbye for now.